Welcome to the work session for the Village Board of the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Wednesday, September 22nd at 27th. Switched from our usual Monday date because of the Jewish holiday on Monday. First up is a presentation by the folks at DTS Provident, who we retained to do an analysis of our traffic signals along the Bedford Road corridor. All right, take it away, DTS.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Carlito Holt, partner with DTS.
Can you hear us, Carlito?
Yep. Yeah, you hear me? Do you hear me?
Carlito, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can too.
I can hear the mayor. Can the mayor and board hear us? Hold on, I'm getting a text now.
It looks like they froze.
Yeah, I'm getting a text now from the deputy village clerk saying that we can't hear him. Is he talking? Which probably means they can't hear me either. Let me ask her. He is, and so
We lost them.
Yeah, I'm actually texting them now. What's up, Steve? What's up, Carlito? How are you?
Not bad.
Good, you?
Good. We're nice job with the presentation, by the way. The slide deck that you sent earlier was fantastic. So,
thank you. Excited for hockey starting?
Oh yeah, man! I'm super pumped. Took the loss against the Bruins, but we beat the Islanders. So, listen, it's preseason, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're back again. Can you hear us, Carlito?
We hear you.
All right. Been a bit of a struggle. Hopefully the struggle is over.
All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Carlito Holt. I'm a partner with DTS Provident. With me this evening is Steve Tarabacchia, an associate with our firm. I'm actually going to really turn it over to Steve. He's going to run the presentation. We can handle it however you want. We probably got about a 10 to 12 minute presentation, but if you want to make it more interactive and jump in with questions along the way, that's fine. Or if you want to save them to the end, we can do it that way.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead, and if we're compelled to inquire, we will, but otherwise we'll hold our questions.
Great.
You want me to share the screen, or will you?
I believe Steve will share.
I will share the screen. Yep.
Okay, great.
So can everybody see my screen here?
Yes.
Great.
Alyssa, why don't we kill the lights on this side and just have a little brighter scene? Go ahead, sir. We can see it.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you to Carlito for that introduction. So my name is Steve Tarabacchia. I'm an associate with DTS Provident, and I'm going to run through a presentation that summarizes the traffic signal timing and optimization study that we conducted for the village. So to jump right into it, this is our study area. So we were tasked with studying a segment of the Bedford Road corridor in the village, which extended from Pleasantville Road to the west up to Wheeler Avenue to the east. So this included 3 signalized intersections. Bedford Road with Pleasantville Road was one of them. Bedford Road with Marble Ave and Memorial Plaza was the second one in the middle there, and Bedford Road with Wheeler Ave over to the right. Just to give you a little context, Sawmill River Parkway is over on the left here. Metro North Railroad runs on the right, and the Village Hall is right in this corner here. So just to give a little overview of the 3 intersections that we looked at, this is Bedford Road and Pleasantville Road. Bedford Road is 1 lane in each direction with a turn lane to get people going westbound to continue on to Bedford Road. And you also have Bedford Road, a continuation of Bedford Road coming up from the south that has a left turn lane and a right turn lane, which is under yield control. Same thing for the Pleasantville Road right turn lane. This is under stop sign control. So these two right turn lanes do not operate under the traffic signal. This is a three-phase traffic signal. And what I mean by that is the first phase, the Bedford Road westbound direction gets a green ball and a green arrow so that they can make their turns unimpeded. Once the green arrow is finished, then the Pleasantville Road through traffic also gets a green ball. So Bedford Road and Pleasantville Road run together on the second phase. And then once that phase ends, the northbound Bedford Road gets a green indication. The pedestrians at this intersection cross with the corresponding vehicle phase. And what I mean by that is when Bedford Road and Pleasantville Road have a green indication, pedestrians are able to cross this crosswalk here. And the same is true when Bedford Road in the northbound direction gets a green indication, pedestrians can cross the crosswalk across Pleasantville. Oops, sorry about that. The other two crosswalks across the channelized right turn lanes are unsignalized, so pedestrians crossing those would wait for a gap in traffic or wait for a vehicle to stop to make their crossing. This intersection of the three intersections has lower pedestrian activity. There's not many peds through this intersection. And overall, of the three intersections, this was probably the best overall operating intersection. Moving on to Bedford Road and Marble Avenue Memorial Plaza. This is a two-phase, this signal runs under two phases. So Bedford Road gets a phase, and then Marble Ave and Memorial Plaza gets a phase.
We lost you, Steve. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Looks like they dropped out again.
Mayor and board, can you hear us? Yeah, I getting another text now from the deputy village clerk. Stand by. We lost voice again, they said. Hold on, I'm talking to them. Okay, so Carlito and Steve, you can hear me though, right?
Yes.
Came back.
Okay. All right, looks like they're back.
All right. If we lose you again, we're going to switch to a hotspot. So, can you hear us, Steve?
Yes, I can hear you. You can hear me?
All right. Go ahead again. If we lose you again, we're going to switch. I think the Wi-Fi is fluky here.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So I was just going through the Bedford Road and Marble Avenue Memorial Plaza intersection. So this is a two-phase traffic signal. Bedford Road gets a green indication, and then once that finishes, Marble Ave and Memorial Plaza get their green indications. Similar to the first intersection, pedestrians will cross with the corresponding vehicle phase. So when Bedford Road is moving, vehicles moving on Bedford Road, pedestrians can cross Marble Avenue and Memorial Plaza, and the opposite's true when Memorial Plaza and Marble Ave is getting the green indication, pedestrians can cross Bedford Road. This intersection does have a higher pedestrian activity than compared to the first intersection we looked at. And overall, of the three intersections, this is probably your worst operating intersection. One of the things we did notice from our traffic counts that we conducted, which I'll discuss in a little bit, is...
All right, we're switching.
Okay.
No one's saying.
Okay.
Okay, I'm on the on the hotspot.
Oh, wait, does that mean it's not recording anymore?
Looks like, do I?
Well, it's recorded on Zoom, right? So I guess,
It records on the cloud, but
but it would also record on Zoom we would have a recording.
do I need to launch again?
We hear you. You hear us?
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Steve? I mean, yeah. You hear us, Steve?
Yes.
Okay, so we dumped the fluky Wi-Fi and are on a hotspot now. Hopefully it's stable.
Okay, good.
We apologize for this. Apparently our Wi-Fi works even worse than this intersection.
You're saving all your money to optimize your traffic signals.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Hopefully we will not have another blip here.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure how much we heard of this overview of this intersection, but I'll kind of continue from the middle here. So what I was saying was this intersection of the three has a higher pedestrian activity. It's also probably the worst overall operating intersection of the three. And one thing we did notice is the Marble Avenue left turn. The traffic volumes are nearing capacity for that left turn. We have, I think in the PM hour, about 300 vehicles trying to make that left. And a good rule of thumb in traffic engineering is anytime you're approaching 300 vehicles on a turn lane, you want to start looking at an additional lane for that turn. The problem here is this intersection is pretty built up. There's not a lot of space to add in an additional turn lane. So that's something that should probably be monitored in the future. And jumping to our last,
when you say 300 per, is that per hour?
I'm sorry, yes, per hour.
Okay.
And last intersection here is Bedford Road and Wheeler Avenue. This is a three-phase traffic signal with two of the phases dedicated to vehicles and one of the phases dedicated to pedestrians. And I'll explain that in a second. So the pedestrians cross this intersection, are supposed to cross the intersection during the exclusive pedestrian phase. And the way the signal works is Bedford Road, both directions of Bedford Road will get a green indication. Then both directions of Wheeler Ave will get a green indication. Then once the Wheeler Avenue phase ends, if someone has pushed a button on any of these four corners of the intersection, an exclusive pedestrian phase will come up, meaning all four vehicle approaches to the intersection get a red indication, so they're stopped. And all of the pedestrian signals on the four corners of the intersection will get a walk symbol. So meaning that if you're in the corner near the Village Hall, and you get a walk signal, you could cross Bedford Road or you can cross Wheeler Avenue. And that signal is, that phase lasts for about 24 seconds. So anytime the pedestrian push button is pressed and that walk indication comes up, all the vehicles at the intersection are stopped for 24 seconds. One of the issues with that is the amount of time that's provided in the exclusive PED phase is only enough to get across one crosswalk. So if, say, for instance, you were in Village Hall and you wanted to go over to the parking lot diagonally across from this intersection, you'd push a push button, wait for the walk symbol. Once the walk symbol came up, you would cross one approach. Then you'd have to push the button again, wait for the signal to run through the vehicle cycle, the vehicle phases, and then wait for the walk signal again where you would cross here. So both of those instances, all the vehicles stop for 24 seconds. One of the other things we noticed with the exclusive pedestrian phase at this intersection is that on average, it's probably being used only about 23% of the time. The remaining time, we've noticed pedestrians are just crossing when the vehicle indications are green. And this crosswalk,
Which means that the remaining 77% of the time, all the cars are stopped, but there are no pedestrians crossing.
no. What I mean is that the other 77% of the time, pedestrians are crossing when the pedestrian signals say don't walk. So it's if Bedford
That's what I meant. I mean, they've already achieved the crossing. And then when the exclusive phase kicks in, it's no longer needed.
Correct. So yes,
They already crossed.
in some instances they'll press it, they'll see a gap, they'll cross before the walk phase comes up, and then all the traffic just stops for 24 seconds for no reason because they completed their cross. In other instances, they don't press the button and they just wait for a gap in traffic to cross. So the 23% represents people that actually crossed when it was a walk symbol on the pedestrian signal. And this intersection does get a higher amount of pedestrian activity. So in order to do our study, we first needed to establish a vehicle and pedestrian traffic volume. So to do that, we conducted manual turning movement counts at the 3 signalized intersections you see here. We looked at 4 different peak periods. So the peak periods were the peak weekday AM period. So it's your typical commuter traveling period. We counted from 6:30 to 9:30 in the morning. The peak weekday midday period, so noontime on a weekday. Peak weekday PM period, so that's your typical commuter period in the evening, and we counted that from 4 to 7. And then we also did a Saturday midday where we counted from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We collected that data, broke it down, summarized it, and we determined the peak hours within those periods because our traffic analysis is based on a peak hour. So you can see the peak hours there that we concluded from our data collection. And in summary, for the manual turning movement counts, we counted a total of 12 hours, which collected data on approximately 40,000 vehicles and 3,000 pedestrians. Now, since these counts were done on single days, we needed to validate that the counts are representative of a typical weekday and Saturday. So what we did is we also installed automatic traffic recording equipment. So there's different equipment to collect data for an ATR, but what we used was a roadway tubes. They're small rubber tubes that are secured to the roadway, and every time a vehicle drives over it, it collects that data for that vehicle, including the number, the speed. And so we installed an ATR on both ends of the corridor that you see here highlighted in yellow. These were down for 1 full week, and they counted traffic 24 hours a day for the entire week. So in total, the ATR data collected traffic data for 168 hours and included about 118,000 vehicles. So we took that data and started to summarize it. So what you see on this chart here is the daily traffic volume variations over the course of the week for those ATRs that we installed. So the 2 different colors are the 2 different ATRs that we installed, the blue being on the south end of the corridor and the orange being on the north end. And then the hatched in areas here in the middle are the Saturday and Sunday. So you can kind of see a fairly consistent daily total volume for both of the ATRs. What we also looked at was the hourly variation as well over the course of the week. So what you see here on these graphs on the left and right are the 2 different ATR stations that we installed. And you can see how the traffic ramps up through the morning, peaks around 8 a.m. You start to see a little bit of a lull late morning while people are at work, kids are at school. Then around 12 o'clock, you start to see traffic start to pick up, people going out for lunch, kids getting out of school, getting picked up, people getting out of work, and then it starts to drop off as you get through the night. So you can see a pretty similar pattern on both of these ATRs, and you can see they're fairly consistent, the data, the vehicles per hour. This is a graph of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and you can see a similar pattern, although slightly more of a plateau in the middle of the day. So based on that data that we collected with the ATRs, I think we're pretty confident, based on the consistency of it, that the manual turning movement counts that we collected data for are representative of your typical commuter day. So once we've established the existing traffic volumes, we need to start to look at future traffic volumes. So for this study, we looked at a 10-year build out. So existing data was collected in 2023. We also projected volumes to 2033. We did that by reviewing some zoning impact analysis that was prepared by BFJ Planning for the village. We also looked at historical count data for traffic count stations that the DOT, the Department of Transportation, has in the area. What we saw with the historical data is that we actually saw a downward trend in vehicle growth for the most part in the area. And the zoning impact analysis didn't really indicate much of a growth in traffic. So in order to be conservative, what we did was we projected the future traffic volumes by using an annual growth rate of 1% per year for 10 years, which resulted in an overall growth to our volumes of 10.5%. And that was applied to both vehicular and pedestrian traffic volumes. We then took our data and started to analyze it. We performed some intersection capacity analysis using software called Synchro. We also performed a simulation analysis using SimTraffic, which works in conjunction with the Synchro software, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a second. We performed an intersection analysis at all three locations that we looked at. We also did a corridor analysis for the entire length of the Bedford Road corridor within our study area. We did the analysis for using both the 2023 existing traffic volumes and the 2033 future traffic volumes, and we did that for all 4 peak hours that we discussed earlier. We also came up with some alternatives to look at. So we looked at 4 different alternatives in our traffic analysis. The first alternative is basically our base alternative, which was no action taken. So whatever data we collected, we put it into the traffic model and we ran it just to see what it looks like if we did nothing. We then looked at 3 other improvement alternatives. All 3 improvement alternatives involved revising the traffic signal timings and providing coordination between the 3 signals. And the difference between those 3 alternatives is how we handled the pedestrian phase, mainly the pedestrian phase, the exclusive pedestrian phase that I touched upon earlier at Bedford Road and Wheeler Avenue. So the first improvement alternative, we kept that exclusive pedestrian phase. For the next one, we actually removed that exclusive pedestrian phase and had the pedestrians crossing with the corresponding vehicle phase. And the last alternative we looked at was implementing a leading pedestrian interval. And I'll get into that a little bit later on in this presentation, what a leading pedestrian interval is. So all in all, we had 2 traffic volume conditions, existing and future, 4 peak hours, and the 4 alternatives you see here. So we studied a total of 32 different traffic scenarios. Once we ran our analysis, we got the results. We summarized the analysis in these tables that you see here. This is one of the intersections. This is a typical level of service table that you'll see in a traffic study. And what it does is it summarizes each of the peak hours and each of the movements at the intersection, as well as the overall intersection itself, gives you average delay, levels of service, and queues. We also did a arterial level of service analysis. So this is for the entire corridor. The arterial level service analysis is based on your arterial speed. So the higher the speed or the closer the speed to the speed limit, the better. So we did the same thing. We summarized the travel time and speeds and levels of service for the entire corridor. At the same time, we also conducted a microscopic simulation analysis, and I'm just going to switch out of this presentation real quick to bring that up. So what you see here is this is the Synchro software where all of the data and roadway is coded into the network.
We're still seeing the presentation board.
Yeah, you need to reshare.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Can you see an aerial with some roadways?
There we
on it?
go. Now we got it. Yes.
Great. Okay. So what I was saying, this is the synchro program. So this is where all the data is input into the program, and it's everything from lanes to timing, signal timings to detection, vehicle detection information is all inputted into this program. This spits out the results that we showed on the tables in the previous two slides, but at the same time, we can also run a simulation. And I might need to share this one more time because I did switch a screen. So I'm going to, let's see which one. Second. So are you seeing a roadway with cars on it?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So this is the sim traffic program, the micro simulation program, which basically takes all the data that we input into the other program I just showed you and simulates traffic operations. So you can see here, you have the signals with the green indications we're looking at Marble Avenue and Marble Avenue and Memorial Plaza. So you can see the vehicles as they traverse through the intersection. You can also see pedestrians starting to queue up at the corners, waiting to make their crossings. And in a little bit, you probably should. Yep. So once this signal turns green, you should start seeing pedestrians crossing the approaches here. And you'll also see the vehicles will wait for those pedestrians to make their crossings as they move. So this simulates what was the data that was collected. And I believe we're looking at an existing peak PM hour. So it's a PM commuter period. You can see queues starting to develop along Bedford Road in the eastbound direction, as well as some queues along the westbound direction. So we recorded this simulation for all 32 scenarios. So we have 32 hours of traffic simulation recording. I'm not going to show that all tonight. But this kind of gives you a sense of what we accomplished with the analysis. I'm going to switch back over to my presentation. Everyone see the presentation again?
Yep, we're back.
Great. So from the simulation, we were able to get arterial speeds, which we compared to the existing base scenario. So what you see on this screen here are arterial speeds for the existing conditions. So what's out there today. And down below in the graphs, there's two graphs, one for each direction of Bedford Road. So the left graph is the eastbound direction and the right graph is the westbound direction. And what you'll see is a series of 4 bars in these graphs. So what these bars represent, the blue bar, so let me step back for a second. Each 4 of these groups of bars represent a peak hour. So the first one is the AM, weekday AM. The second one is the weekday midday, weekday PM, and a Saturday midday. And what the bars represent is the blue bars are the no action scenario. So that's our base scenario. What it looks like today without doing anything. The other 3 bars are the 3 improvement alternatives that I discussed earlier. The first one being maintaining that exclusive pedestrian phase. The second one, removing that exclusive pedestrian phase. And the third one, implementing a leading pedestrian interval, which I'll get to in a second.
So can I ask, the improvements in the pinkish bar, scenario B, maintains the existing pedestrian thing, but the improvement is produced by better syncing of the 3 signals?
Correct. It's modifying the signal timings themselves. So how much each approach is getting a green
Understood.
time. At the same time, also coordinating the signals.
Yes.
That's correct. Yep.
The percentage is the percentage of vehicles, or?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? You're a little low.
No, I just want to make sure I understand what I'm seeing. So the percentage in increase is a percentage of vehicles moving through the traffic lights, or?
No. So what this graph is showing is the arterial speed, because that's what the level of service for a corridor is based on. The values at the bottom are the actual speeds that we're seeing in the model. So what the percentages are actually showing the increase in speed. So for instance, in weekday AM, for the no action scenario, your speed along the eastbound portion of that corridor was 11.8 miles per hour. Now this is an average, so it's taking into account, people that are stopped in queues, people that are stopped in lights, or people that are making it through without any impediment. So that's an average. So for the scenario B, or the first improvement alternative we looked at, we were able to get speeds up to 13.2. So that represents a 12% increase in speed. So that's where you're seeing the percentages here. So in every instance, except for this one instance on the weekday PM, where we did see a slight decrease in the speed, which went from a 9.1 to an 8.2. Everywhere else, we did see an increase in speeds along the corridor, from as little as 3 and 4% here to as high as 36% here. And we did the same thing for a future condition. You can see as I flip through from the existing to the future, obviously the speeds get a little bit lower because now we've added more traffic into it. But then you can see how the improvement scenarios help that corridor. So just to give a brief summary of the four alternatives that we looked at and the benefits and disadvantages of the four. So the first alternative, or not really an alternative, but is the no action scenario. So obviously the benefit of that is you don't have to pay for anything, but the disadvantages is you're not getting any improvements, and the current issues that you're experiencing are probably going to get worse as traffic starts to increase. The first improvement alternative, by maintaining the exclusive pedestrian phase, we do see improvements along the corridor. It maintains that existing pedestrian safety because of that exclusive pedestrian phase. But your improvements are limited because of that pedestrian phase. Remember, when that pedestrian phase comes up, all vehicle traffic is stopped for 24 seconds at a time. So that limits the amount of time that we could dedicate to vehicles. And by providing the coordination between the signals, there may be additional equipment or upgrades that are needed to the existing traffic signal controller box in order to coordinate the signals. By eliminating the exclusive pedestrian phase, this actually provides the best improvements along the corridor, because we can now take that 24 seconds that was dedicated to pedestrians and start to dedicate it to the vehicles. The issue with that is now you start to get some decrease in pedestrian safety, as now your pedestrians are crossing at the same time the vehicles are moving. And same as the first alternative, this may require additional equipment if coordination needs it. And the last improvement is implementing the leading pedestrian interval. And I'll get to that on the next slide. But again, this improves operations along the corridor. It does maintain some level of pedestrian safety. But the improvements are limited because we do need to dedicate some time to this leading pedestrian interval. And again, with the coordination, we may need additional upgrades and equipment. In our study, we do recommend this alternative as the recommended improvement, the one with the leading pedestrian interval. And I'll just show you how that changes the phasing at Bedford Road and Wheeler Avenue. So Bedford Road and Wheeler Avenue today has an exclusive pedestrian phase, which you see on the left here. So as I said earlier, all 4 vehicle approaches are stopped and all 4 crosswalks can accommodate pedestrians. This occurs for 24 seconds. By implementing a leading pedestrian interval, what we're allowed to do is we can knock down that 24 seconds to about 3 to 5 seconds, and then dedicate the rest of the time to the vehicle. So what a leading pedestrian interval does is it allows a pedestrian to establish their presence in a crosswalk before a vehicle gets a green indication. So what do I mean by that? So typically, if you ignore these left 2 screens here, typically, vehicles will get the green indication at the same time. The parallel crosswalk will also get a walk indication, meaning pedestrians can start to walk when the vehicles get that green. The issue with that is sometimes for turning vehicles, if a vehicle gets the green and they want to make a right turn and a pedestrian steps off the curb at the same time, sometimes that pedestrian ends up in the vehicle's blind spot and it's hard to see that pedestrian. So what the leading pedestrian interval does is before the vehicles get their green indication, the pedestrians get a walk indication for 3 to 5 seconds while all the vehicles are stopped. This allows them to get about a quarter to halfway through the crosswalk before the vehicles get a green indication. And those pedestrians are now more visible to a turning vehicle. So instead of them being right at the corner, stepping off a curb, they're now established within the middle of the crosswalk. So this provides a level of pedestrian safety while also allowing us to dedicate some time to the vehicle. So we chose this alternative as it's a pretty good mix between moving vehicular traffic along the corridor while also maintaining some safety. And I will mention that not only do we look at the leading pedestrian interval at Bedford Road and Wheeler Avenue, we actually implemented it at the other two intersections at Pleasantville Road and then Marble Road and Marble Avenue Memorial Plaza. So that actually helps those two intersections increase their pedestrian safety.
So those bar charts you showed us a few slides ago reflected the leading pedestrian interval at all three intersections?
That is correct. And I will mention that with the traffic software program that we're using, the leading pedestrian interval, we needed to have that come up for every signal cycle. And what I mean by that is a leading pedestrian interval should only come up when someone pushes a pedestrian push button. But due to limitations in the traffic software, we had to have that interval come up every single time the green indication for a vehicle came up. So it's actually somewhat of a conservative analysis. So the improvements you're seeing here are actually probably a little bit better in reality. It's just that there's limitations to the traffic program. But yes, you're correct. We did implement the leading pedestrian interval at all three intersections. So while we're dead.
And that doesn't get at the strengths where on so many occasions press the button but find a gap before they get the walk signal, have already crossed, then the walk signal is triggered and everyone is stopped in this scenario in one direction, even though the pedestrian's already gotten across. Would that problem be reduced with the LPI, do you think?
Shorter signal.
Well, it's a shorter signal.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that because you were starting to break up a little bit?
Sorry. If I understood you correctly, in our current environment at Bedford and Wheeler, there are quite a few occasions when opportunity before they get the walk signal. Walk signal kicks in, stopped, but there aren't any pedestrians. Am I right?
That's correct. Yes. Once someone presses the push button on the signal, it registers with the traffic signal controller, and it's going to come up no matter who's there.
And that's happening a lot, right?
That happens today quite often. Yeah, because you do have a lot of pedestrian activity here.
So is that problem improved with the LPI scheme, the leading pedestrian interval?
Yes, because what happens is if somebody presses the push button, even if they cross beforehand, you're only losing about 3 to 5 seconds before vehicles get their green. Where in this
and for that 3 to 5 seconds is all traffic. There is no occasion. So for 3 to 5 seconds, all traffic is stopped, and then the parallel traffic to the crosswalk gets a green.
Correct.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, it's just like skeet shooting where you say pull and the clay pigeon goes and then you can go.
Yeah, so even your intersections today, when you get a red light, the intersection, everybody usually gets a red light for 1 to 2 seconds. That sort of handles anybody that tried to sneak through at the last second. This way you're not getting green lights immediately after the other light turns red. So your light is already red for a couple of seconds. We're just extending that a couple of more seconds before it turns green for the vehicles. Whereas in the existing case, that 2 to 3 seconds of all red starts to extend another 24 seconds until everybody can get a green again.
Does this in practice reduce the amount of light running collisions between vehicles as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the data is really out there on that. It's really a pedestrian improvement and something that the state DOT has been having implemented on many of their signal upgrades in downtown areas.
Yeah, Carlito and Steve, I just wanted you to touch on that. You kind of already answered the question, but just to further embellish, the state DOT is very much in favor of LPIs, correct?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, and how old would you say, just for the board's knowledge, when did LPIs really start becoming prominent in the traffic engineering world?
Say in the last 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so I just wanted, right, so it's a newer technology, and again, the state DOT, which we know is who they are, if they're on board with it, then that's a very fairly good thing, because they don't make a move without a lot of data and studies to support any change to the department or adoption of any new technology, materials, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you, Carlito and Steve.
And you might have even driven through an intersection that has an LPI already. I know in White Plains they do have LPIs all over the place, and you can see it as you're waiting there. Pedestrians will get a few seconds head start before you get the green indication.
Yes.
So next steps, assuming the village is okay with going ahead with the improvements, we would consult with a traffic signal maintenance contractor, so they'll be able to go in, open up the traffic signal box, certainly test the functionality of what's there today, making sure everything's working properly, and also determine if we need any additional equipment to implement these improvements. We'd also prepare detailed traffic signal plans, timing permits, cost estimates, so we have everybody's on the same page, and you would construct the recommended improvements. And I think that was all I had for this evening.
Thank
Steve,
you for that. Right. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to mention that those traffic signal timing plans, if they were revised and adopted by the village, they do need to be submitted, maybe not necessarily for a permit, but as a matter of formality, they need to be submitted to the county, correct? Which is the County Department of Public Works and Transportation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you would want them in the loop on it. But I think it's more of a formality.
Right.
An impressive effort. Thank you, guys. Backed up by hundreds of pages of data available for the reading pleasure of all of us and anyone in the community who's interested. So a piece of this improvement separate from the pedestrian cycle is the coordination of the signals. And do I hear you correctly that we don't know for sure if the equipment we have in place for those 3 signals is adequate to maximize the coordination?
That's correct. Yeah, we're unable to get into the traffic signal controller boxes. We could get into it. We don't have the equipment or the software to read the equipment in the box. So yes, that's something we'd have to determine.
And in the hypothetical that we do need upgrades, obviously we don't yet know what they might be. Is that a major cost? I mean, are we talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands?
I think it depends on the system that you go with. There's several different coordination systems out there. It really depends on which coordinate system you want to go with. I think as part of the coordination, the equipment itself, I don't think is too expensive. I'd have to go back and look at some numbers, but it's really more getting the traffic signal contract. I think your cost of traffic signal contract, getting out there, doing the work, and installing any equipment that they need to do.
Yeah, I think, really the basic coordination is getting it more on a time-based coordination.
Yep.
So get everything on the same traffic signal cycle, and it doesn't really involve any equipment upgrades per se. But what we're seeing now more on the signals as they become more sophisticated is adaptive signal systems, where the equipment gets equipped with a modem, and the adjacent signals actually communicate with each other in real time, and they're able to tell each other, hey, for some reason, the last 3 Fridays, I've really seen a lot more demand on the more Memorial Plaza approach. We should think about reallocating. That's where it can get pretty pricey, into the, pushing the $100,000 range, because you're really upgrading all the traffic signal equipment.
So that's the system kind of crowdsources the data each signal is getting. Like, periodically there's a detour that on the sawmill that feeds a whole lot of people into the village, potentially at a time would otherwise be quiet. A system like the one you described, the fancy expensive thing, could respond to that or not?
Yes. Yeah. And actually, depending upon how you implement the system, you can even have it remotely controlled. So you could have, someone that could go in and actually adjust the timings remotely, because it can communicate with the signal. Right.
But you'd have to have a qualified being available to do that. So, are our signals based on a cycle of weekdays and weekends? In other words, what the lights do now or what they would do in a revised coordination would be based on what's expected at a given period of time on a given type of day? Or is it does the same thing every day regardless?
So we can we've developed timing plans for each of those 4 peak periods that we looked at. So the signal can switch between timing plans for different hours of the day.
And can it switch for different hours of the day and different days of the week? In other words, do something different on a Saturday than it does on a Friday?
Yeah, you can change it by hour, by day. Yep.
And does that start to become diminishing returns, or is that actually a benefit?
It's a benefit. Based on what we did here, you do see different levels of vehicle and pedestrian traffic, so it does benefit it. And what Carlita was saying earlier, before, that adaptive signal control is sort of like a artificial intelligence for traffic signals. It handles that on demand, so you actually don't put any different timing plans in them. It actually will automatically update itself based on the demand.
That'd be great to have. It's probably too rich for our blood at the moment, but
that you're not the only municipality.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have questions?
I thank you so much. It was it's really fascinating data, and I like the recommendation very much as well about the LPI. My question, I don't know if you have an answer to, which is about at the Bedford Marble Memorial Plaza intersection, if you're a car heading eastbound into that intersection, and you want to turn left onto Memorial Plaza, there are a lot of people who would love to see a turn arrow there, a dedicated left turn arrow. People who live on the west side of town, and this is part of their life every single day. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. When I brought it up before, I was told I might as well get set in for a 10-year project with state DOT or something like that. But do you have any thoughts about whether that is a good idea for cars, pedestrians generally?
Honestly, we didn't look at that in detail. Our task was really to work within the existing signal infrastructure. I think it would definitely be a benefit to that eastbound approach, but at the detriment to the westbound approach, because if you give a green arrow to the eastbound approach without an exclusive turn lane, you have to hold back the entire westbound approach. Whereas if you had a dedicated left turn lane on the eastbound approach like you do on the westbound approach, you could at least run the left turns concurrently.
Yeah, usually if you want to have a green arrow signal, you typically want a dedicated turn lane. In the Bedford Road eastbound, you only have a single lane where you can make turns from, and the issue with providing the left turn signal is if you have a whole queue of cars that are going through the intersection and they get a green arrow with a green ball, maybe the through vehicles will get through, but then by the time the left turn car gets up to it, maybe the green arrow is gone and now they have to wait anyway. So typically with a signal arrow indication, you want to have an exclusive lane for that.
So if hypothetically 2 or 3 of those parking spaces were removed, could you have a stack of people turning left and then a stack of people going straight and right? Or is that not feasible or not a good idea for some reason or other?
It'd be a bit unconventional because you'd be shifting typically, right? If you're going into a left turn lane, the left turn lane traffic is shifting out of the through lane. So what you would do if you're going to use that parking space area to develop the left turn lane, you're really going to be shifting the through lane around the left turn lane. That's not to say I haven't seen it done in other downtown areas, but it would be a bit unconventional.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that the intersection is unconventional, and it's, the road goes back to the colonial era, so and I'm sure before that. So it's narrow, and we're just trying to figure out the brainstorm of what to do with a very narrow, treatment.
I think it's something that could be done. It might end up losing more parking than you want, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Complicated also by that free right turn that allows westbound cars to turn right and yield if they will, but to continue south on Marble Avenue.
Yeah.
Which, as a related problem, is a problem for pedestrians because when they're trying to cross on the south side from the lower left to over to Tudor Time on the right, they get to the place of refuge and then have to wait.
Yeah.
Because there's never a dedicated walk that protects them in that first little step.
No, because that is not under signal control. Correct.
Right. But again, it's also a relief point for cars otherwise backing up behind them. Further to the discussion you just had.
Yeah.
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right?
Correct.
Thank you. This is very good work.
You.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? All right, guys, really, really appreciate it. Thank you an awful lot. And thank you, Anthony, for
Very well.
coordinating all of this.
Mayor Carlito and Steve too. Great job as usual. Presentation was well done. So Eric and Mayor and board, just for next steps, we could reconvene internally, and then if decided to be in the interest of the village, we would re-engage DTS Provident to basically continue with phase 2 of the work scope, which would actually be contracting with the contractor, someone like Verdi, maybe even Verdi themselves, and then really figuring out and understanding the blood and guts to the system. And obviously before we do that, we would have a preliminary or even a final construction cost estimate from DTS to give us a gauge of what we can do, what we want to do, and maybe the in-between.
So, and we own all the equipment, even though it's a county road?
Yes.
I think I misunderstood something there. Why would there be great costs to just making that change to the length of time the signal goes?
Oh, well, the cost would be associated with Verdi having to come out, and obviously there's the well, first and foremost, DTS Provident and Carlito and Steve, you could correct me if I'm wrong. The DTS Provident would need to develop a traffic signal timing plan, because half of the reason why the village is where they are with the traffic signals is because they were tinkered with no oversight from a traffic engineer or a licensed professional engineer who has expertise in traffic engineering. So they were changed and modified, and unbeknownst to a lot of people, there were things that were done that just weren't really, I guess, highlighted and maybe necessarily evaluated and engineered. So the engineers, Carlito and Steve, they would develop a traffic signal plan to give to once they evaluate the equipment and the infrastructure, they would give that to a contractor, much like a design and a build, right? They would design the traffic signal plan, the contractor would build it or modify it. So that would just be an additional soft cost for DTS Provident and a hard cost for likely, which will be Verde. So there needs to be a plan, because Verde will not go in there and start changing the timing. When I met with them last, really, they don't like to do that. If it's a small tweak, that's a different story. If it's a total retiming, they want a plan by a licensed professional engineer.
Yeah, and
Understood.
I would just add on that, we can, I think that can be a little TBD, right? Because
Right.
the Synchro software provides a lot of that timing information that Verdi could use, and I've seen another contractor, they can actually kind of input the timing parameters from that. But I think, to Anthony's point, ultimately you want something that lets you know what's out there, what is it, and what's of record. Because in the case of just tinkering with the timing plan, you do run into these issues of why is this like this,
Right.
and why was this implemented.
Thank you.
All right, great. So thank you for all of that. And Anthony, we spent a long time on that, and I think it was the right thing to do, but I think we're going to bump the capital discussion to the next meeting.
Understood and agreed, Mayor.
Yeah, we're already late. So thank you, Anthony. Thank you,
Yes.
Steve and Carlito. Really, really appreciate it. And I think the community at large will appreciate it when we start to see these improvements. I mean, even modest improvements at these intersections, I think, will be felt very clearly by people passing through.
Agreed.
All right.
Sure.
All right.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you all.
Right. Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Likewise. All right, we will morph from our work session to our regular session. Everybody ready? All right. Good evening. Welcome to the Village of Pleasantville board meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 27. Normally we meet on Mondays. We switched to Wednesday because of the Jewish holiday on Monday. We're camped out here at the Senior Center, unlike our usual setting at Village Hall, because of schedules on Wednesday night at Village Hall. So as is always the case, folks are welcome to appear in person, generally at 80 Wheeler Avenue, today at Clinton Street Senior Center. And you can also pick up this meeting as well as meetings of our other boards and commissions via a Zoom link, which can be found at pleasantville-ny.gov. And within a short period of time, the recording of our work session and our regular session will be available at pctv76.org. So, couple of announcements to make up front, and one of them is there are only a few short hours before the rain postponed but soon to happen Pleasantville block party. Have I got that right?
Correct.
Go for it, Paul.
We are scheduled for this Saturday. We are excited that we're looking at some decent weather. It's just a normal fall day. So we're hoping everyone can make it. I know there were some people who are away, like Nicole here, and now they can make it. And I have a couple other friends and family members that have the same situation. So
I have the reverse problem. I would have been there, and this weekend I'm away. But you will have a good time without me.
Yeah. So just to remind everyone, we are on Washington Avenue from 1 to 6 o'clock. That'll be the car show aspect of the show, of the whole event. There'll also be vendors there. We're also going to have the fire department. He's going to have some presentations. We'll have a face painter, a balloon maker. So that'll be from 1 to 6 on Washington Avenue. On Wheeler Avenue, we'll be there from 3 to 8. We'll bring back the fun zone, which is specifically right in front of about La Barberia and Frank and Joe's. It's all free, so the kids can come. There's going to be rides, a bouncy castle. We'll also have live music. Michael Pepper is actually one of the performers.
We'll see. With the change of date, my other guitarist may not be able to make it. So
Well, so Michael Peppard will be appearing solo.
Wow.
we'll see what happens.
We'll have some live music on
Better bands than me.
We'll also actually have a DJ on Washington Avenue. So we hope that everyone can make it. It'll be a good event for all ages, and hoping to have one great event before we get into the colder season of the year. So hoping everyone can make it.
All right. And thank you, Paul, who's the field general for all of this. And thanks to our good friends at the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I have one thing, which is sort of an announcement, sort of just a temperature check from the board. But so from 2020 through 2022, on a volunteer basis, we did something called the Candy Crawl, where some of the trustees, along with school board members, we drove every street in the village and in the school district and threw out candy to kids. I think the last year we gave out about 3,600 pieces of candy, more or less. It was really intended as an alternate trick-or-treating opportunity for kids and families who, for one reason or another, during the pandemic, could not go trick-or-treating. This year, not so much that the COVID is gone, but because things have more or less returned to normal, what we've thought to do, and I welcome any input on this, is to solicit some donations, but then to create a booth at the in the Ragamuffin Parade, at the end of the Ragamuffin Parade in Memorial Plaza, to create a booth where kids can come and trick or treat the booth and get free candy there that's donated by village residents, as a way of streamlining this into something that we already do and making it a little bit easier to maintain going forward.
Fine by me. I defer to Captain Candy Crawl.
Yeah, we I'm sad to see it go, but I felt like about the right time, and it was a nice thing that we did for a few years that I think hopefully helped the spirits of some of the kids in the village, and we'll still have an opportunity for kids to get an early trick or treat on Sunday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your having taken that on, David, particularly during the pandemic, which, was rife with disappointments for people. So it was nice to,
it was really
to have an alternative. But I think pivoting makes sense at this point. So
I agree. In the 2 years that I participated, the difference in kind of build up and excitement was very palpable, from year 1 to year 2 that I did it. So I think it makes sense that this idea which was right on time and now pivot to do something else.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. A couple of other things to report. One is, as you might already know, this week, in fact, beginning this week, every U.S. household is entitled to get 4 free COVID tests sent by mail. So you can sign up for that at covid.gov and get 4 free COVID rapid tests delivered directly to your home. That's a set of 4 for every residential address. So I encourage folks to do that. And also at that same website, covid.gov, they have an updated listing of test expiration dates. Before you throw it out, check for its expired dates reporting. Quite a number of the tests had a formal extension of their expiration date and you can check to determine if ones that you might have on hand have expired. And if they have, be aware that they may or may not be as accurate as you imagine. So covid.gov, you can get 4 free tests. And perhaps, as you also know, the FDA has, or I guess the CDC has approved a new COVID booster, which is now available, that's targeted specifically at the variants that are most prominent in the fall. And those are now available. You can get them in various pharmacies, many of them with online appointments. So if you're interested in getting a COVID booster, I encourage you to try to sign up for that. And at the same time, flu shots are available as well. Quite a push going on at the moment to improve the percentage of people that get the flu shot as well. So obviously, as David already indicated, life feels quite a bit more back to normal, but there isn't any doubt that the COVID numbers have risen, as is likely the case as folks are closer together and more inside. So covid.gov, check it out, see if that provides an opportunity for you. I had a couple of other things to report. I want to report again something I mentioned the last time. The county government has been pushing pretty hard this problem with fires created by lithium batteries, particularly in things like e-bikes and motorized scooters and the like, motorized skateboards. But to a lesser degree, it can also happen with laptops and things of that kind. Very important to keep an eye on those and not to allow them to be stacked under a lot of covers. And if you see any sign of swelling or overheating of a battery, stop using it and attend to it. Those batteries, when they catch on fire, are difficult to put out, and there have been quite a number of serious problems created. I know the New York City Fire Department has had something north of 200 serious fires caused by those. So the county is pushing pretty hard about that to try to get the word out, because a lot of folks don't imagine that it could be a risk. So take a look carefully at that. Eric, we have said a bunch of times that by this time, end of September, there'd be shovels in the ground on Manville Road. That has been a struggle. That has, you've been on it every day. Why don't you give the community a quick update on that?
Sure. So the contractor for the job, PCI, has contractual obligations to hire minority-owned business entities to do a certain percentage of the work. They've been unable to secure those subcontractors and are appealing to New York State for something called a good faith effort waiver. So that submission is currently being reviewed by DOT's Office of Civil Rights. Initially, they've indicated that the PCI has made a concerted effort to reach those thresholds, but due to the lack of contractors or contractor denials, that they'd likely get the waiver. And now we're just waiting on that before they can come back. Because ultimately, without the waiver, DOT will not allow payment of the contractor if they're in violation of that contract. So that's what's holding up.
And what's our deadline before we have to push to the next construction season?
So that's all dependent on the weather. Typically, plants close late November, early December. So likely around then. There's probably about 2 months worth of work altogether left, but certainly if they can get into the ground, let's say in October, maybe even early December, they'd be able to get a lot of the work done.
All right, then on a sad note, one of our beloved and longstanding crossing guards, George Fuscante, who has for many years kept kids safe at the intersection of the Old Village between Bedford Broadway and in the area there by Kraft Pizza. He unexpectedly and suddenly passed away. A very sad loss. Our sympathies obviously go out to the Foscante family, but also to all of the kids and neighbors for whom he was a fixture of their daily life, and a trusted crossing guard who looked after everybody and had a good word for all. So a sad story, but certainly a person who leaves a great legacy. So. All right, any other announcements on any subject?
Just quickly, we can't attend because it's happening at the same time, as we're speaking, but the, Climate Smart Community is hosting in conjunction with the Mount Pleasant, Conservation Advisory Council, a presentation on home solar. So for those who are interested in installing solar panels on their own home, and I'm sure it will be recorded. So if you aren't able to attend and you're interested, we have a Facebook page for our Climate Smart group. It'll be posted there and probably elsewhere as well.
Okay. Great. All right. With that, let's move to the resolution. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a comment from the public of any sort?
One of the items that you're coming up to.
All right. Why don't you pipe up now and you can.
I've been watching the.
You need to just call out your name. Yeah, we know you. We know, but yes. Okay.
The golden jet over there.
Now, I'd not heard that.
With interest, the Pleasantville Music Festival. I don't know what their financials were over. This is like 17 years now with the 2-year.
Yes, that is right.
But last year's festival lost $36,000, and they blamed much of it on one of the groups backing out. And the article that I read said that they planned on searching for additional funding and sources and ways to hold down expenses. And despite that, this year it lost $57,000. I don't own a business, but I think if I was constantly going in that direction, I wouldn't tend to call it successful. One of the things my wife and I looked at was, and I can understand people don't show up and you're counting on people showing up. I don't know if you're familiar with it. There's a Halloween thing that's done in Curran. It's called the Blaze.
Yes.
Yes.
They charge ahead of time and there's no refunds.
Right.
So pre-sales, and if it rains, too bad. I would think that might be something they would want to consider, pre-sale, free tickets. Maybe if they're gonna have tickets at the gate, maybe the price on the tickets at the gate should be at such an amount that people would not want to do that at the gate. They would buy them ahead of time. But to try and guarantee that they get enough money to at least break even, going backwards in revenue, $57,000 is a lot of money.
No doubt. So let me just put a little context on that. Like 4 years ago, we made $40,000. Obviously, it's not our goal nor our intent to make money, and nor is it our goal to lose money. And in the 17 of these we've done, our goal in the aggregate has been to, some years we're up, some years we're down. And I would say overall, it's probably fair to say we're relatively even. I think this board, and I think it's fair to say past boards as well, feel as though it has turned into an event that is both very much loved by many people in the community, but also a little bit of a trademark event for Pleasantville that has been a positive piece for the recognition of what a great place Pleasantville is. So there are a lot of community benefits attached to it that might warrant an expense. We've always been aware of how weather dependent we are. There is a very active advanced sale, and in fact, a tiered pricing. You can get the cheapest price if you buy way early, and the prices at the gate are higher. So we very much encourage people to buy tickets in advance. The reality is the differential in the price of the ticket, $10, $15, something like that, is insufficient for some people to say, I'm going to wake up, see how I feel, see if it looks sunny. If it looks rainy, maybe I won't go. You've got all those things factoring into it. So I would say, having been involved in this for all these many years, it is very difficult to predict what kind of a draw you're going to get. And what we certainly know is that on a very good weather day, it's much easier to have a big success financially. Again, we're not trying to make money, but we're trying not to lose money. Let me also say that the costs of doing this have spiraled substantially, and one of in every category, but one of the core pieces is talent. Bands 10 years ago obviously there's been inflation, but years and years ago, and Michael's probably a guy with better touch on this music world than I, but touring was a means of promoting a band and its music, and money was made in other ways, selling CDs and the like. Now it's a very different world, and touring is one of the prime ways a band makes money. So, we've got bands. Obviously, we're not in a position to be competing for, bands that would charge hundreds of thousands of dollars, but bands that we used to get for a modest amount in our budget are now asking 3-4 times as much as they once did. So, there's some storm clouds on the horizon about how to keep this viable down the road. But I can tell you, I don't know if you've ever been, but it is even this year when we had a outbreak of thunderstorm and people running for cover. It is an impressive feel-good day. I have many times said it's way too big for us to do and way too good not to do it. And an awful lot of people who live here, as well as a bunch of people who come, view it as one of the best days of the year. So there are all these things flying around. We're certainly aware of all the issues you just raised. One of the pieces of this that goes into our annual planning is to try to develop more outside sponsorship. Shout out to Northwell Health, which came in 2 years ago as our primary sponsor, and has been so for this past couple of years. We have, as you perhaps know, a bunch of other sponsors at a smaller level, but it's been great to have Northwell, not only because it was a substantial contribution, but also because it's a great synergy. They own and operate Phelps and Northern Westchester, our two primary community hospitals, and it's just a really nice opportunity to sort of showcase all those things Pleasantville. So long-winded answer to say nobody wants to lose money, and I do think if you added it all up over 17 years, we're probably a bit in the black, but in the red, I'm sorry, but not much. Certainly at a level over those many years that I think easily warrants sustaining it as a community event. If we lost $57,000 every year, I think it would be a harder discussion.
The advanced ticket sales, are they, can they get a refund?
So what we say is if the gates open, no refunds. We don't have any wood to knock on. Here we are. We've not been in a circumstance where we've had a full-on cancellation. But certainly, if the event were canceled before the gates opened, you'd have to give a refund. If an event is canceled very early in the day, when all the bigger bands haven't yet happened, there'd be a conversation about it. What we say up front is if the gates open, there's no refund. But there certainly are. We pay close attention. Bruce Figler, our executive director, goes to and follows a lot of other festivals, both way bigger than ours and others in the region. And we're always kind of exchanging notes about how to handle the reality that it's an outdoor event and subject to the weather.
If it had to be canceled, say for extreme weather, the bands, do they have a contract that they're going to get paid anyhow?
The bigger bands do get paid. That's the deal in music. But that's a fairly small number out of the, I think we have 18 bands this year?
18.
Yeah. Most of them, and many of them play for a very modest sum. But it's only the sort of headliner bands that have a guaranteed contract. And, their story, that's the way it's been forever in the music world, but they're setting aside this date in their schedule and they're bringing their bus and their tour crew and all of that. That's their argument.
Well, the one that backed out last year, what was it, 10,000?
10,000 Maniacs, yes.
Did they get any money?
No, in fact, they had an illness, so they had a deposit which they returned to us.
But just to put it into context, that article was generated by a work session discussion, which was a response to kind of a general awareness on the village board that things have changed, that a number of factors are changing, for instance, the prices that some of these bands are commanding and so on. And so it was motivated by a need to rethink things and to think about what kinds of alterations we might make to avoid these kinds of risks.
And to be, and to be comfortable with the risks we know we can't mitigate, right? Weather, right? I mean, this year we bought a weather insurance policy. that was not triggered, but we've looked at that quite a few years, and there are a whole bunch of if-then statements about whether it would provide a payout in the event of bad weather. But the real reality is, if you have a crummy day, a bunch of people are, I don't think I'll come. If Taylor Swift were coming, they would come.
That's for sure.
So far, she is coming to the Burns in the form of a movie.
Just to go back to the my name's Michael. I don't think we've met. To go back to the initial question about numbers, I was concerned too when I saw 57,000. So, but the average of the last 5 festivals is negative 5,000 per year.
Well, that's
You
what I said.
average that over
Aware of
5.
What the.
Yeah, right.
The only
And that's-
thing I'm going by is
Yeah,
last year's and this year's.
Right.
And then we had 2 years. of
Right,
COVID.
right, right.
we didn't lose any money then.
Didn't lose
So-
any money.
We didn't make any either.
So there are two very easy choices we could make about revenue generation. One, a $10 ticket price raise closes the gap almost completely.
It closes the
That's it.
gap unless it reduces our audience. That's
We have a disagreement. I don't think it will reduce the
I'm
audience.
thinking post-COVID, this year should have been a more, just my wife and I were driving through Mount Kisco Sunday. I couldn't believe how many people were standing on the sidewalk to get into the diner in Mount Kisco.
Yeah.
Because people are out everywhere. You would think that they were anxious to
Well,
get out and
it's
and
true.
go to something.
Another piece of that is that we're competing with more festivals than we were 17 years ago. So, whether it's in Croton or in Connecticut or other places that people can drive to. But then the other revenue generator is we don't have a tiered pricing structure at all. And we're kind of on the edge. Like a smaller town festival wouldn't have that, or a smaller festival wouldn't have that, but we're on the edge of big enough where some kind of tiered pricing, meaning that there's different sections.
What would
Yeah.
you say percentage-wise estimate, percentage-wise as to free ticket sales versus at the gate ticket sales?
You get those numbers?
I think it's
Just telling us.
round figures. It's 60 to 70% pre-sale, 30 to 40% day of. Well, again, there are a bunch of people who are just not going to buy a ticket until day of,
Yeah.
just because it's a long day outside.
And then the weather does obviously.
And obviously the lineup you have has a different effect depending on who you are. We've got some people are like, oh my God, they might be giants. I follow those people. I've been following all over. I am there. I would be there in a monsoon. And other people are like, they might be giants. I don't know.
Well, that's
So-
why we looked at the Blaze thing, because.
Yeah.
Our daughters are taking, if it's raining, they still have it. And you're
No,
not
I know,
getting
yeah.
money back. You say, I'm not coming because it's raining, too bad. You pay, you either come or you go
Yeah.
home, but you're not getting your money back.
Mhm.
A lot of people were upset with that, but that's their policy. Yeah.
Well, and they have all this fixed cost to have set the whole thing up.
Yeah.
We're in a bit of a different circumstance where, as you might imagine, people have different tolerances for coming out to events on rainy days. And if it's there was a festival down county called Toonerville just this past weekend on Saturday, and they had a rainy day. They pulled it off, but I think it had it inevitably has an effect on your audience. So,
Well, we saw what the effect was last year, with the block party, the weather that we had.
Right.
And if you like, Paul, Friday night, I will hang my medal out. My mother gave me that, as a thing to try and get the good weather.
I would love
And-
that.
and hang your medal out.
Maybe we'll add
No.
that as a resolution.
I don't know. I want you to save that for the music festival.
But also just on a side note too, what we were discussing that was kind of outside of that article was the effect it had on the actual businesses in the village that day was amazing, because when they had to pull everyone to leave, everyone went to places, to restaurants, to bars all around, and also after. So it still brings in a lot of people that might not even really come to Pleasantville and just kind of they see these restaurants, they kind of plan out. Some of them maybe only want to see the bigger headliners, so they come to Pleasantville, come to lunch, come to a dinner, and then go see the show. So they might not come for the whole day, and it also does have some vendors that do participate. So it kind of adds where just culturally, it really adds to who we are as a community and what Pleasantville offers. That really, of course, when you're just counting the numbers, it's highlights. And I completely agree with you with all the different suggestions you've made. But I think that the other aspect too is that it does bring a lot of value to our community overall.
Oh, I'm sure it does. We were just bringing it up for the fact that, we know other venues that with this free ticket sales, at least then if you're getting the majority of them in pre-sales.
Yeah.
And you're not depending so much on the people that just show up at the gate. However, you can encourage pre-sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
The bottom line.
I mean, this is the struggle with festivals in general. If a band you're interested in seeing is coming to some auditorium, and you think that there is a decent chance it will sell out, you got to jump on it, or you might get boxed out. With an outdoor festival, we have a theoretical limit, but we're not at risk of beating that. So people realize they can always come; they can make a last-minute decision. So it's a little different game than when Billy Joel is playing Madison Square Garden. But maybe we'll get Billy Joel.
So, like I said, I'm sure it's very beneficial to the village.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
The businesses.
it's. I mean, there are a million stories I could tell you about those moments that make it all worthwhile. But one of them, a few years back, a band comes off the stage, a lot of young rado, road warrior rockers, and the one guy says to me, "We've never played a thing like this. Volunteers looking after us, and just a good zen. Everywhere we go, we're like, backstage with union stagehands, perfectly good people, but it's just everyone's doing a job. Here, everyone's doing something on behalf of their community, and it feels different to be on stage in that setting." So I'll take that. I don't want to spend $57,000 on it, but I'll take it.
Just giving our 2 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Lou. Thank you.
Waiting now, today's the 27th. I'm sure they're filling up the blowers, just getting ready to pull the strings and start. I was so.
Was it better this summer? Did you?
No.
No?
In fact,
No, at Foxwood? Were they not?
I called on Foxwood.
Really?
And
You should've
I
called
could show
me,
you
man.
pictures of the guy. He was outside my window.
Yeah.
For them to say that they were doing storm cleanup is a crock, because you could see the picture of the guy. There's not 3 leaves on the ground. They just figured, hey, let's try.
That's not what the
See,
statute says anyway. It has
I
to be
know.
an officially, well, next time call me. And,
Well, police came. They
Police came.
Whenever we would walk the
Yeah.
meeting, it'd always be Gardner
Somewhere.
somewhere.
really,
Yeah.
We saw one, he was in the
Because-
parking lot at John Jock in the middle of the day. Some of them, they just don't care.
Yeah, so there's no doubt. I mean, I think
Others are better than others, I
right.
think.
We've had mixed results, but there certainly has been some compliance. A bunch of neighborhoods feel like it's been better, and hopefully, as the months pass, people will get with the program. There's a landscaper in my neighborhood who has a bunch of clients, and I've had several conversations with him, and I saw him show up the other day, and he had an electric blower. Yeah.
I'm grateful.
One thing that,
I had 3 classes this semester. I'm teaching 4 days a week. I'm just happy that I'm back in the college.
Yeah.
And not trying to do it at my window over there in Foxwood,
yeah,
because when they start them up, there's
Yeah.
5 of them in one place. 2 backpacks, 2 push blowers, and a riding blower. I feel like I'm trying to do my class at the airport when I was doing it.
Yeah.
remote.
Yeah.
well, in neighborhoods where they have switched to electric, the decrease in sound has been really dramatic. I mean, on my block, it used to be the same thing, but it's been a lot better. One thing that I think was very helpful, but that we need to circulate more, is Alyssa put together these postcards that have a summary of the law in English on one side, Spanish on the other, with a QR code that links to the website that has a more detailed explanation. And I found those to be a very effective way to let landscapers know, or sort of to remind them, because it's a non-confrontational way of being like, and it makes it very official, it makes it very clear. And then, sometimes there are those who just refuse to listen. And then that's, that requires a different kind of intervention. But I think the majority, at least in my experience of the landscapers, once they're kind of nudged and reminded, this is actually the law, then they will comply.
Well, what I found to be annoying with ours is there was no attempt during all that time to use any kind of electric equipment.
Really?
I mean, we had the regular lawnmowers going,
Yeah.
and so they were just leaving stuff in the street, and it's like they were saying they were having like a little fit because, you're not gonna let me play with my toys, I'm not gonna, And so, yeah, there's electric equipment out there. It wasn't the leaves falling out of the trees.
Yeah.
What they were normally blowing before the ordinance was passed is grass clippings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get an electric blower and blow the grass, but they didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And then they tried to sneak the other one out and.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Very much.
I appreciate your visit.
I will hang the medal out.
Thank you.
All right. Does it work?
Hope to see you.
Don't use it up, though. We may need it for other days. All right. Any other comments from the member of the public on any subject? Looking online, I see none. To the resolutions, 3:30, Paul.
Result, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on September 11th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or corrections to the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. 3:31, Nicole.
So approval of budget amendments for the fiscal year ending 2024, budget transfer of the general fund, $34,442 from contingency to police admin full-time, $1,630 from contingency to police admin holiday pay, $103 from contingency to police admin sick retirement payout, $66,319 from contingency to police uniform division full-time, $19,372 from contingency to police uniform division overtime, $2,798 from contingency to police uniform division holiday pay, $293 from contingency police uniform division vacation buyback, $6,675 from contingency to social security, $1,718 from contingency to Medicare, and $423 from contingency to MTA tax. That's a total of $133,773. Increase of revenue and expense of the general fund, $5,710.25 in insurance recoveries, property damage for police vehicle repair and maintenance. Appropriate fund balance water fund, $45,300 transfer to capital for water system audit and rate study for fiscal year ending 2024. Increase revenue and expense of the capital fund, $45,300 interfund transfer from water fund for the same water system audit and rate study.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions on the budget amendments?
All of those transfers from contingency, the police was the settlement of the PBA contract. And finally processed through payroll. We had budgeted for that in contingency.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Michael, 3:32.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated September 27, 2023 for fiscal year 2024, covering check numbers 108609 to 108706. From the general fund, $292,524.61. From the water fund, $169,915.95. From the capital fund, $660,716.08. The refuse fund, $17,935.43 for a total of $1,141,092.07.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, that big number on the capital was the repaid,
Right.
our annual repaid.
Which was successful.
Very, yeah, it's actually the largest
aggressive
saving we've done, I think. Since I've been here, certainly.
And I think for some years before that. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 3:33. Back to you, Paul.
Result of the Board of Trustees hereby assess the resignation of Kna Allah, Recreation Supervisor, effective August 30th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 3:34, Nicole.
Resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby adopts the Village of Pleasantville's family medical leave policy attached hereto.
Is there a second?
Second.
Federal guidelines.
Yep, we've had one in place that we followed, the federal law, but it's best practice to actually formally adopt one. Which will make available to our viewers.
All right, that is attached to the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Michael, 335.
Whereas the New York State Retirement System requires that elected and appointed officials who are members of the New York State Retirement System report their time, and whereas the New York State Retirement System requires that we set a standard workday for elected and appointed officials, and whereas the New York State Retirement System requires that these hours be reported based on a timekeeping system, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby establishes the following standard workday for the following employee and will report these days worked to the New York State and local employees of retirement based on a record of activities maintained and submitted to the village clerk by the following employee. The appointed official is John Vukelj, standard workday of 7 hours. From April 2023 to April 2027. Participate in employer's timekeeping system, no. 4.52 days per month, and this is submitted.
Is there a second?
Okay.
John's record of activities is attached. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Back to you, Paul.
Result of the Board of Trustees hereby approves the submission to the West Virginia Board of Elections of the following locations. Polling sites for March 19, 2024 Village Pleasantville election. Village Recreation Department, 48 Marble Avenue, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, 197 Manville Road, Case Host Firehouse, 134 Bedford.
There a second?
Second.
March 19th is the village election. We, unlike some, sustain the historic March elections instead of moving to a November election. I personally think that has been a prudent decision. 3 slots up for election, the mayor and 2 trustees this year. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 337.
Whereas on August 28th, 2023, the Board of Trustees authorized the village elections to be held on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. And whereas on September 27th, 2023, the Board of Trustees approved 3 polling locations. Village Recreation Department located at 48 Marble Avenue, Emmanuel Lutheran Church located at 197 Manville Road, and Hayes Coast Firehouse located at 134 Bedford Road. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the village 2024 elections for the purpose of filling the village mayor position and 2 trustee positions.
Is there a second? Better do these in order so that the second whereas would be accurate.
Yes.
Whereas on September 27th, we approved polling.
Call that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Michael, 338.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the Pleasantville Music Festival to be held on Saturday, July 13th, 2024 at Parkway Field.
Is there a second?
Okay.
That's our traditional second Saturday in the month of July. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Paul, 339.
Result of the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the hiring of the following part-time available recreation assistant effective September 26, 2023. Caitlin Miller at $20 per hour. Admin buildings, special events, youth and adult, those are the budget code. Kelly Martin at $20 an hour. Also admin buildings, special events, youth and adult.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 340. Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign a proposal with AKRF Inc. for planning services.
The agreement is attached. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Michael, 341.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees authorizes up to $120,000 for the 2024 Pleasant Music Festival talent budget. Further resolved, the contractual deposits for band be allocated. The village administrator is authorized to execute contracts with selected bands.
Is there a second?
Okay.
This is a means of addressing the fact that the planning for the festival occurs in a fiscal year, one fiscal year. The festival is second because our fiscal year begins on June 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Paul, 342.
Result that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to execute the proposal of Woodard engineering, project for services for the Nannahagan Brook retaining wall in the water improvement project in the amount of $287,400 for design, permitting, and procurement, and $53,100 for construction administration oversight services.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is the painfully growing project to address the Nannahagan Brook issues.
That's right. Yeah, there's wall reconstruction and then a water component as well.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Nicole, bring it. 340.
Whereas these were advertised in the official village newspapers on September 18th, 2023, and published on BidNet Direct on September 18th, 2023. The deadline 6/24 decorative lighting improvements, LED luminaries, and lampposts. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby awards the bid for decorative lighting improvements, LED luminaries, and lampposts to the sole bidder, Spring City Electric Manufacturing Company, in the amount of $39,000. And for the result that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator or the Superintendent of Public Works to execute all related agreements.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this reflects new street lighting fixtures that will be on Cooley Street, which is soon executed two-way street between Bedford project at 70 Bedford Road begins to wind up and will soon be occupied.
They look great too.
Yeah.
The lights.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a really nice addition and kind of a standard going forward. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was the last of our regular resolutions. Is there any further comment or new business? Any comment from anyone online? All right. Before we close, let me just comment that in work session, we had a presentation from consultants who we had engaged to do an extensive traffic study relating to the three signals along Bedford Road at Bedford and Wheeler, Bedford and Marble, and Bedford and Pleasantville Road. And they came back with a very detailed report, which is actually just a summary of some hundreds of pages of report, and have come forward with a number of possible improvements that would both protect pedestrian safety, but also improve the traffic throughput at those intersections. So if you're interested in the details of that, you can pick that up on the webcast of our work session, which will be posted fairly within a few days at pctv76.org. But perhaps, Eric, we could also post that online and havable as well.
Yep.
So lots of discussion about how to improve traffic throughput and also how to analyze what's actually going on. And really quite a bit of interesting information came forward, including the fact that some of the problems we've identified are not more cars. They're in fact fewer cars than we have had in some years past, but different traffic flows and different pedestrian interactions. So you'll hear more on that as we roll into the phase of deciding exactly what to do about it and engaging the folks who would accomplish it. But the short version of a long story is there do appear to be a lot of opportunities to make some improvements along Bedford Road with synchronizing and adjusting the lighting, the traffic lights. So, all right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. We will be back 2 weeks from today, right, on Wednesday, the 11th. Same story, a holiday on Monday, the 9th. So our next village board meeting will be here at the Clinton Street Center 2 weeks from today, Wednesday. I'm sorry, did I say May? I had May in mind. Wednesday, October 11, 7 p.m. here at the Pleasantville Senior Center. Meantime, get yourself ready to attend the block party this weekend.
Yes. Look forward to seeing everyone.
All right. Thank you all. All right. So we were going to go through capital items with Anthony, but clearly no time to do that. So we'll do that the next time.
Yeah.
Do we want to do that meeting?
I did, didn't I?